start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Mayor Williams, I guess you can go first. Go first. Age before beauty.
We are off to a good start, aren't we?
Let's keep it this way.
Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for coming. I see this as the start of something really good for our two municipalities, and perhaps more than that for the region. I mean, think about it. The town of Bluffton and the city of Hardeeville comprise over 110 square miles. And by 2040, we will most likely exceed 100,000 residents. Now, add to that number all the adjacent unincorporated lands that identify with Bluffton and Hardeeville, and combined, we have a significant, and this being a discovery zone, a place where we can share ideas, share our regrets, and share our plans for the future. And perhaps we can find ways to collaborate and act as one voice to our delegations. Perhaps we can avoid some mistakes that we both have made in the past. And perhaps, most of all, we can serve our residents a little bit better. And perhaps it starts today. So with that, Mayor Toomer, I turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way as what you just said there. You know, the big thing is having respect for each other, and everything that's going on in Hardeeville is a little bit different than what's going on in Bluffton. Bluffton started a few years ago, so I think there's a lot of things that we wish that we had done differently, or the council that was in charge at that time. And as Harry meant, environment's the whole thing. There's a reason that everybody wants to live in this area, and it's because they found us, they like what we have, and we have to be so mindful not to let the very thing that we love about our area and the same thing that attracts everyone else that comes here be sold out for the God Almighty dollar. We have to fight to protect what God gave us, waterways, the lands, just the peacefulness of this area, and not be for sale. I mean, development's coming, we know that. Everywhere you look, it's going on. But we don't have to chase every dollar bill that's waved our way. And I'm adamant about that personally, and I feel sure the rest of my council feels the same way. This is home. Bluffton is home to this sitting council. Dan's the only one that's kind of only been there 40 years or so. So the rest of us pretty much born and raised in Bluffton, and we care about it in a different way than most people. And we're fighting for what's right and the protection so that our kids and grandkids can have the same blessings that we've been so fortunate to have. So working together, power is in numbers, and respect is all it takes. And you know, I look forward to it. And I think Harry's done a wonderful job he mentioned this meeting to me, and I said, wow, let's go, let's do it. And that was only 3 weeks or so ago, so here we are. And I look forward to us all being on the same team, fighting for the same reasons. Thank you. Three minutes, Josh.
All right. Did he sign in?
So as the mayor's indicated, anything that happens in Hardeeville is going to impact Bluffton, and conversely, anything that happens in Bluffton, by its nature, is going to impact Hardeeville because of how closely we are aligned both geographically and regionally. And so wanted to take an opportunity to talk about all of the things that we have going on in Hardeeville right now, particularly looking at our increase in population, our commercial activity, our housing infrastructure, our roads and rural infrastructures, and then a number of other things that we're working to preserve quality of life within the city of Hardeeville. And so first and foremost, one of our top priorities are out attracting new, quality, high-paying jobs for the residents who live in Hardeeville and in greater Jasper County. And along those lines, we recently had the pleasure of announcing a new manufacturing group that is relocating to Hardeeville. So TS Conductor has leased a little over 300,000 square feet of industrial and warehouse space in the Clarius Industrial Park. They're going to be creating 462 new manufacturing jobs. So not forklift jobs, not custodial jobs, but manufacturing jobs, which we're really, really excited about. This represents an investment of over $134 million. And what's even more exciting is while they've leased a 300,000 square foot facility, they've also signed an option on 1 million square feet of additional space beyond that. And so they're already anticipating their future growth needs and some other opportunities that will hopefully come along with their being in our community. In addition to Clarius, there's other buildings within here. So let me see if I can get this to work or not. There we go. This is the 300,000 square foot building that they've leased currently. This is the 1 million square foot building that they've signed an option on, but you can see that there's a couple of other facilities there. And so ultimately, by the time it is completely built out, just this one development alone is going to be a little over 2.5 million square feet of industrial and warehouse space. Just up the road on Highway 17 from Clarius is another opportunity that we had back in November, groundbreaking for an organization called SALT, the South Atlantic Logistics Terminal. And again, that's an 880-acre development that at full build-out will have about 6 million square feet of industrial and warehouse space, representing $200 million in capital investment, and will generate in excess of 550 new jobs. To the south of that is the 500-acre Sherwood tract. That is property that is owned by the Southern Carolina Alliance. They are out actively marketing this particular property for an OEM manufacturer. And one of the parties that I know they're trying to market to is any of the Tier 2 suppliers to the Hyundai plant down in North Georgia. And so knowing that there are going to be suppliers to service that facility that are going to want to locate in the area, they have been out advocating for this particular location as an ideal place, not only because of its proximity to the mega plant in Georgia, but also to the Port of Savannah and all the logistics that come with having that access. Just a little bit further south is the proposed Exit 3. So this is going to be a new interchange that's going to be built as part of the I-95 widening project. So currently Purrysburg Road goes over I-95. It does not actually connect with the interstate, but this will create a new interchange at Exit 3. Up here in the northern portions of the property, this is a very large residential community. Here in this area, they're planning medical offices, hospitals, professional office space. This area here is commercial and retail growth related to the interstate. Keep coming down further, this is all multifamily in development. This area right here is conceptually slated to be a 1 million square foot convention center with hotels, restaurants, and other entertainment options. And then as you continue to move south, it then forms into more of the industrial and warehousing capacity down here. And so I believe this southern portion represents another 4 million square feet of industrial and warehouse space and 200 jobs at full build out. Just through this corridor alone, we're anticipating that over the next 15 to 20 years, we're going to create in the neighborhood of somewhere about 7,000 new jobs as a result of the growth and the development that's going to take place along this particular corridor. On the northern end of the city, we announced a number of months ago that Buc-ee's was going to be coming. We're very excited about them coming here, not only because of what it's going to offer in terms of services, but the jobs that it's going to create. And I know the mayor's joked about that his next career is going to be one of the customer service attendants at the gas station because you can make 6 figures working for Buc-ee's. And so they're going to create over 200 jobs, good, well-paying jobs that are going to support residents within our community. And it's going to generate a significant amount of additional revenue, not only for the city, but for the residents of Jasper County and the greater Hardeeville area. And so we're anticipating that based upon just their food and beverage sales alone, they're going to do somewhere in the neighborhood of about $30 million in annual sales. You can see this is the project setting for it. So this is exit 8. This is the hospital complex. And so right here on the northern side of I-95 between 17 and 95, this is where Buc-ee's is going to be going in. Just catty-cornered that here to the south is a development called South Point. Again, that at full build-out is going to be 840 multifamily units, 580 single-family units, and a little over 800,000 square feet in commercial development space. So there's a commercial village that's anticipated up around this area for exit 8 at I-95. This is big box retail space, and then shops and villages. I think similar to what's maybe envisioned for the new Riverside area for y'all, is similar in concept to this area here. And then this is all residential on the periphery. In addition to this, we're also working on a redevelopment initiative to support and create a true downtown feel. So this is Highway 17, otherwise known as White Hardy Boulevard, coming down from exit 8 up here, heading towards exit 5. I equate this area when I'm out talking to folks to the little place called Radiator Springs that was in the Disney Pixar movie Cars. So back in the day before the interstate existed, this was a major corridor for transportation. And so hotels, restaurants had all grown up around this, having access to the travelers. But when the interstate came in, a lot of those folks bypassed the area. And so that area has fallen into disrepair and is not what we believe it should be to represent our community. And so the city a number of years ago adopted a redevelopment plan for this area. And we're really trying to make some strides in implementing this vision, but it really calls for a redevelopment of this commercial corridor for mixed use, both commercial and residential applications, which at the end will hopefully create a true downtown area and a sense of place for Hardeeville, which really doesn't exist right now. We've got a lot of wonderful residential communities, but if you're not inside of those communities, there's no sense of place within the city itself. And so we're hoping that this can become that area and not only support small local businesses, but this area back here will support the municipal hub complex, which again could create opportunities for public gatherings, festivals, and events within this corridor. So as the city continues to grow, we are continuing to grow our staff. In the last 10 years, we have doubled the size of city staff to try and keep pace with the demands of growth that is happening within our community. And so 10 years ago, we had 70 full-time staff members. Today, we have close to 160. And again, that number is going to likely continue to increase as we're seeing more people move to our community. So, talking about people moving to our community, what do those numbers look like? We're looking at somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 new residents every year. And so if we stay on that same trajectory over a 10-year period, we will add between 20 to 30,000 residents to our population. And so that will have a significant impact not only on the characteristics of our community, but the services that we have to provide and then the impacts to our infrastructure. So where is this growth occurring? It's occurring everywhere. So the city's boundaries run all the way over here, the northernmost portions. This is the intersection at Oldfield. This is the East Argent area. And so the city's boundaries basically start here, go all the way up to I-95, come all the way down to exit 3, all the way down to through Highway 17 to Alligator Alley, and then back up in this direction. And so within here, you can see all the different spots that all these different communities are growing and adding population. And here's the names of the communities themselves that are part of this growth. So housing and commercial demands last year, so at the end of 2024, we issued 1,363 new single-family residential permits and had just slightly over 1,000 certificates of occupancy. And you can see that trajectory in terms of the growth and the numbers. And at this point, year over year, we are on par to be at or above where we were this time last year. So something that internally as staff, we are constantly monitoring and looking at on a monthly basis to see where we're at in terms of the overall area. And these numbers don't take into account a number of fairly recently approved communities that are going to add some additional numbers. So we've got the Morgan Tract, we've got Hilton Head Lakes West, South Point, and a number of others that are going to contribute to these increased numbers, as well as areas within the East Argent community. Now that the Spine Road will be completed, hopefully sometime around October of this year, a number of those communities that aren't currently accessible will now become accessible and will start coming online as well. This just gives you an example of kind of where the communities are and where people are going. So some of our fastest growing communities, we're here in Margaritaville, Argent Cottages, Sun City, Riverton Point. Number of those are 55 and up communities, but a number of them are also open to anybody within the community itself. And so you can see we are growing across the board in all of our residential areas. Just a couple of examples of what these new home products look like. And again, they run the gamut in terms of builders. We've got D.R. Horton, Farino, Lennar, K-Havinian. Most major builders do have some kind of presence within our community. But in addition to that, the growth itself and the increase in value of underlying land and the housing stock as a whole continues to become more and more expensive each year, and that exacerbates our already existing affordable housing concerns. And so the city is pushing back on that with an opportunity that was already put in place a couple of years ago, which we hope will create more of a template for us to repeat. And so this was the Harvey Place. This was a public-private partnership between the city, a developer, and a nonprofit organization to come together to create townhomes that are affordable, where the city provided the underlying land. The builder, in this case Farino, built the units at or below their cost, and then they partnered with Habitat for Humanity to qualify residents and put them in these units. And so our goal is we are actively in the process of looking for land that is going to allow us to have Harvey Place Phase 2, Harvey Place Phase 3, and try to replicate this model more throughout the city to create these affordable housing options. So with all the roads, or with all the population coming, with all the housing increases, it has an impact on our roads, utility, and infrastructure. And so we are actively trying to make progress in a number of areas. First and foremost, one of the biggest things that we're going to see in our lifetime in this area is going to be the widening of I-95. Something that probably should have been started a while ago, but is finally here and is hopefully moving forward this calendar year. It's anticipated that it's going to take 3 years for construction. I would say that realistically speaking, we've all worked with DOT before. That means it's going to be 4 years before it's over, but at least at the outset now, we're hoping that they're going to be able to stick to these timelines. This shows you the new interchange at Exit 8. So with Buc-ee's coming in right here in this location, Exit 8 itself is being completely redone. This is called the Converging Diamond interchange. This has been tested in some other areas in North Georgia and is now the preferred alternative for DOT for high volume traffic intersections. And so we'll see that going at Exit 8. There'll also be some improvements at Exit 5 where they're going to install new traffic lights to help with getting on and off the interstate, as well as a new frontage road going back behind. This is the QT, the Wendy's, and some other businesses there to try to lessen the amount of traffic that is currently going through this corridor. And then finally, I mentioned the new Exit 8, or Exit 3, which doesn't exist, but again, this will be that converging diamond. And again, looking up here, this is the medical complex area. This is heading north on Perrysburg Road to the residential community, and then south towards all the commercial, multifamily, and then the industrial and warehousing even further south. So, in addition to those projects, we're also actively working on a number of improvements internally within the city. So this first one up here, this is the intersection of 278 and Latitude Margaritaville. If anybody has ever tried to drive south on 278, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, you will likely have experienced this traffic light, because in most instances, it will take you 3, 4, or even 5 cycles of this light before you're able to get through it and then continue your way south. And so we've signed a $1.3 million contract with APAC to begin work on improving this intersection, to hopefully allow for more of the mainline flow and reduce the backlog through there. In addition, this middle one here, this is the intersection of 278 and John Smith Road. Again, if any of you have tried to come down that way in the mornings, you understand how difficult of an intersection this is. And so we received $9 million from one of our development partners to pay for the cost of construction for the improvements that are going to be necessary at this intersection. And then lastly, this is the intersection of 278 and Argent Boulevard. And again, if any of you have tried to make that left-hand turn, you got to do one of these before jerking the wheel. DOT is going to be coming out, and they're going to bid this project starting this summer. So June, July, we're looking forward to them getting underway, because this is very needed in terms of lengthening the turn lane and creating greater stacking capacity so that traffic isn't out on that main line road. And then in addition to that, we're looking at improvements on 17, shortcut in Argent Boulevard itself, and that all plays into the transportation referendum that Jasper County was successful in passing this past year. And so that is going to create about $376 million to address road congestion and traffic issues all throughout Jasper County, with a number of these projects significantly impacting the city of Hardeeville. So funding in this referendum provides for improvements to Argent Boulevard, which is desperately needed. It provides funding for widening of 278 from I-95 all the way down to the Beaufort County line. And then it provides infrastructure monies for SC 46, 170, and 315, and then the widening of 17 and Levy Road improvements. So a number of very needed transportation projects that are thankfully going to be paid for out of that pot of money. You can see here the triangle. So this is Argent Boulevard coming down to 278, coming down to 170. Argent Boulevard will be provided for because it's in Jasper County, but the portions of 170 and 278, because Beaufort County was not able to pass their referendum, were uncertain as to when they might be able to move forward with any kind of improvements to those areas, even though I think collectively we would all agree that there are a number of improvements that need to continue to be made to this area. Education and workforce training. If we are bringing people here and we are creating jobs for them, we need to make sure that they are ready to take on those jobs. And so in order to do that, we partner with a number of different entities, not only within our local community, and I always want to give an opportunity to shout out to our charter schools and our private schools. They are doing fantastic jobs of filling needs within this community, and every year that they open up new classes and new grades, they are filled almost immediately with students. And so that has created an awesome opportunity for us with our new schools that are coming to this community. And then we also partner with the Technical College of the Low Country. We provided some grant funding to them to support the development of their workforce training center. And then of course, partnership with USCB as well. And in addition to all of that, the city offers its own workforce training program. So we offer programming in welding, commercial driver's license, and then OSHA occupational safety hazards job training. And so last year we had 150 graduates who received either their welding certificates or a CDL. And I would tell you, if you're a resident of Jasper County or the city of Hardeeville, this program is likely free for you. So then lastly, talking about quality of life and social service needs. As I know you all are aware, a lot of times the commercial growth lags behind the residential growth. And so one of the things that we are continuing to try and advocate for is an acceleration of our commercial growth. And for us, that means that the needs of our residents can be met within the municipal limits of the city of Hardeeville and not having to go someplace else to get those needs met like they currently have to do. And so we have entitled a number of different areas from a zoning standpoint for commercial development, restaurant development, retail development. We just have not seen a lot of that product coming online yet, but we know that it will at some point. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions that y'all may have about what's going on in Hardeeville.
I got one, Josh. When you were talking about these different projects, road improvements, do you have one prioritized over the other? Or, I mean, have you gotten that far with it? And also on the same note, are you going to bond this money so that you can go ahead and start working now instead of waiting 15 years to?
So as part of the referendum process, it called for the creation of an advisory body, which consists of the mayor of Hardeeville, the mayor of Ridgeland, the chairman of Jasper County, and the school district chair or representative, I think. And so that body has already started meeting, and within their second meeting, they were able to prioritize, at least as far as a first tranche goes, 4 projects, 2 of which being Argent Boulevard and the widening of 278, as well as then a couple of other projects. The one in Levy Road, and then there's another one up in Ridgeland, and I don't recall that one, but that prioritization has already started. The discussions about whether or not it's going to be bonded or not are still being kind of pulled together with some information that the county is primarily leading, but that will absolutely be part of the conversation. And with the projects that were picked, Argent Boulevard and the widening of 278, the design and permitting efforts for both of those projects are going to be multi-year stages. And so if we start today on just getting the design and permitting work going, it will likely be 2 to 3 years before we're at a point of having the information necessary to go out to bid and then ultimately go under contract to construct these projects. So if we start those now, it'll still be a couple of years before we start seeing something happen, but we at least need to get them going now because of how big they are in scope.
And we've experienced this just in my time with the town. If you wait until you can afford to do it, it'll cost twice as much and you won't be able to afford it then either. Yeah. So just nothing's coming down in price, so just keep that in mind and
unfortunately
bite
it's
the bullet and pay the interest and get it done.
And something else to keep in mind, because we definitely have this on our radar, is the fact that when the I-95 project goes live, they're going to be taking up a lot of subs and a lot of contractors because they're going to be trying to do significant portions of that roadway all at the same time. Just for example, I want to say that there's 14 different bridges that they're going to have to replace just in that first phase of the project. And so we're kind of anticipating the contractor market getting even more thin than what it is now. And so again, that's just going to result in additional higher prices because we're competing against the private sector, and the overall growth in our area is such that contractors can pick the highest bid and choose that work over working for us or others. And so I think there was an article just in the Post and Courier last week, the week before, that talked about they have several $million-dollar projects that they can't get anybody to bid upon because of the volume of work that the contractors are up there out chasing.
Any comments or questions from you guys?
I have some questions. Great presentation. I'm equally as excited to hear some of the projects you all have planned. On the conversation of roadways, I wanted to know, like, with the build for exit 3, is there a plan to maintain intersectionality between Bluffton and that particular exit? Like, currently now we can, take 46 down Main Street, hop on exit 5. Will it be the same with this one?
So right now, Perrysburg Road does exist, but it is primarily a dirt road for significant portions of this area. And so that will change. That will be paved and it will be widened so that it will be 2 lanes in each direction. So that will create additional opportunities that if you're coming up 46, you make a right on either 170 or 17, and then you'd be able to cut up what is going to be Riverport Parkway is going to be the name of that road once it's constructed, and then it'll go all the way up to I-95 and then actually continue beyond that all the way up to Church Street in the northern portions of the town.
Great. And 2 more questions. My other one was, do you all have, that you're on the front end of this and bringing in a lot of these big corporations, a contingency plan where you can be able to look at a way to construct affordable housing in a sense of, not the traditional sense that everyone thinks of, but addressing the needs of those at that 60% or lower that may be, employed at Buc-ee's or doing some of the more skilled jobs that would have them priced out from the housing market?
Yes, ma'am. So actually, our partnership with Habitat for Humanity, knowing the clientele that they serve, that is the market that we're working on. Now, I would argue, and I think the council would probably echo it as well, we need to create more of that, not only from what we've done, but even outside of that. And so we've actually negotiated with some of the developers to provide different incentive packages. And so one of which was the car tract. They gave us $250,000 to be used specifically towards affordable housing. The other one with the Morgan tract, I think they negotiated 2% of their units and $10,000 per unit. So essentially, I think it was like $2.5 million is what it's going to, $1.5 million is what it's going to create for workforce housing. So we know that there's a need there. We're starting to put in place kind of what those other opportunities are going to look like, but we know that it runs the gamut in terms of anywhere between AMIs of below 60% to AMIs above that are still just not affordable in this market when I think the average cost, there was a housing symposium a couple months ago, and the lady said that the average cost of a home on Hilton Head was $1.1 million. The average cost of a home in Bluffton was $800,000, and the average cost of a home in Hardeeville was $600,000. And so at $600,000, that is still unattainable for many, many people, even above the 60% AMI threshold.
Thank you, and that's a great point. I'm glad to see that. That is a consideration, because, we all regionally are dealing with that, but we know when it comes to businesses, that becomes definitely something that's adverse to them if they can't supply the workforce needed to keep the businesses operating. It impacts everyone. And then lastly, you mentioned having a workforce and being able to train some of them. Are you all looking at possibly bringing in or creating a partnership with your public schools, so where if you're bringing in big manufacturing jobs or whatever the need is, that they are building those type of things into their schools? I know some have done like academies, so where it could be like it's right from school out into that particular workforce component.
We have definitely talked with some of our charter schools and private schools. The Jasper County School District, I would say, is in a time of transition and change, and so we haven't had a lot of direct communications with them. But once they get to the point where they're stable, we would love to engage with them to have just those conversations. And so while they haven't happened yet, I do anticipate that they're going to happen sometime here soon.
Please keep them on the table. As a former public school educator, that's definitely a place where you have a lot of talent funneled through. So, thank you.
Hamilton?
Josh, thanks for the presentation. You mentioned that there could be 7,000 possible jobs, and that's over a span of how many years?
I would say 15 to 20. That's the likely build-out cycle that we're looking at for all of these areas.
What negotiation or incentive with these industries that will make those local jobs?
So I know that TS conductors, for example, received some incentives both from the Department of Commerce and from Jasper County as part of a multi-county industrial park. But beyond that, the city hasn't had to offer too many incentives or try to otherwise attract folks at this point, just because we are the next logical growth area, with Hilton Head already being essentially built out, Bluffton getting to the point where you're closer and closer to being built out. We are that next frontier, and people that know this area know that this is where the jobs are going to come. And so we haven't had to offer too many incentives, but I don't know if there's anything else you'd want to add to that in terms of things that the city may have done.
No, I mean, we have, and I think Josh is underestimating. But, just doing the number of things that we know are going to happen. But I don't.
Like Buc-ee's, for example, there were no incentives offered to Buc-ee's.
No, very, very little. They came in, that one TS conductor, it's part of a MCIP, a multi-county industrial park, and we have a FILO. That was in place even before they came. But one of the big incentives for this area is the fact that Jasper County is an opportunity zone. So all these big warehouses that are going up, they are investment companies that put them up and then they lease them out. Even TS Conductor, they're leased properties. So they have incentives invested in them through the opportunity zones, the tax credits that go maybe, 25 years, is it?
Yep.
Are tremendous, and that's what's drawn a lot of the investment into southern Hardeeville.
I think most of Bluffton has come to a place where we say we know better, so we do better. So I want to share with you that was something that we didn't know at the time, that quality of life means that you negotiate for your residents to make sure that they can have jobs, and these big manufacturing companies or industries don't bring their people to our area and leave us jobless. Basically, that's a part of the growth. That's a part of maintaining the culture and preserving that quality of life and character of our communities. So if the next time you get a chance to be at the table, if you say, hey, how many jobs you going to give us, they'll listen, I promise you. Okay.
It's a great point. And historically, Jasper County was one of the poorest communities in the state of South Carolina. And so our employment levels were not necessarily the same as what were in other communities. And so a lot of the jobs that we're trying to bring to our area now are to support the residents who are already there in our community. Now, certainly they may bring some with them, but you make a great point about making sure that they're going to select folks who are already here and folks who we've hopefully trained for those jobs to go right into that workforce.
No questions. That was a lot of information. Thank you for the presentation. I'd love to get a copy of that if possible. I think Mr. Hamilton brought up a good point, just know better and do better. And I think that us being a little bit ahead of y'all with the growth, I hope that you, with some of the unintended consequences from our growth that we're now seeing, I just hope that y'all think forward, thinking on all of that.
Mayor,
Wood?
yeah, I would like to jump in. It's funny, and first of all, I want to commend the mayors for bringing us together. I'm a huge, and Fred sits on the committee, and the mayor sits on the committee, a huge proponent of SoLoco. Mayor Williams knows that. I think that we can't get out of this alive if we don't work regionally. You have limited resources, whether it's jobs, whether it's schools, whether it's roads, whether it's water quality, whether it's affordable housing. There are limitations to everything. So we need a regional approach. Bluffton is in a different position. And I've lived here a long time, and I was involved in Jasper County. And so I'm happy for Jasper County and Hardeeville, because they were the poster children of having nothing for decades and decades and decades. And so now they have an opportunity to have some of these things. But I will say that the seats that we sit in Bluffton are different than yours today, in the sense that the number one thing we heard about, all of us in our trying to be reelected, was growth, growth, growth. So all of the things that we just outlined, your growth, then you need the jobs, then you need the housing, then you need the transportation. And one thing that's always caught my attention politically was I always looked at Mount Pleasant and Charleston. And they got inundated with traffic because the transportation grid was not capable of managing or handling the flow of people that they put in there with the job success and the big corporations and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how we all shake out, because like in southern Beaufort County, there's a possibility of building one or two roads, possibly, maybe not politically. So the traffic from Bluffton and Savannah flow through Hardeeville, and as you said a while ago, the traffic from Hardeeville and Savannah and Beaufort flow through Bluffton. So it's just going to be interesting to see how we navigate all of this. And I have seen that Hyundai plant on 16, and it looks like something out of a science fiction movie. Never in my life have I ever seen anything that mammoth in scale and size. So even that impacts us you know, the job market and the growth and the housing, everything.
Yeah, USCB's teaching courses in Korean culture now specifically to market towards the people who are going to be moving here to support that plan. And that gives you an idea of how regional of an impact it truly is. I know one of the questions that I was going to have for kind of the conversational point was going to be, you all are in a very similar position in that we are, in that many, many years ago, decades ago, you had councils that approved these development agreements before the growth had come here, anticipating that these things are going to happen over time. And we're in a very similar position now, that a lot of this growth that's coming here is based upon agreements that were approved 20, 25, 30 years ago, that there's not a whole lot that we can do about because we can't take it back. But I was going to ask you all, how have you found opportunities to improve upon those agreements or to try to make, and I know it's a tough thing to do, but that's, again, given where you are and where we're at, that was one of the things that I was going to ask of advice and guidance that you all may have had.
Can I jump in, Mayor?
Go ahead.
I think the mayor has been beating the drum a lot about the environment. And that is a direct relationship to development agreements. The development agreements that were written that we had flawed language in them. For example, every development agreement says they, what is the word, should have affordable housing?
Shall.
But it doesn't say when it has to be built
Or must.
or.
Yeah, it wasn't concrete.
Yeah, or whether they have to build, a lot of it was, they, for example, like over at Seagrass Station, it said that they have to do 9 affordable housing units, but it didn't say they had to build them and when. So they saved them to the very, very end. Now we're getting to the development agreement, and those are the last units remaining.
I may be wrong, Richardson. I think the word should was used in a lot of those development agreements.
I think you're right. I think that affordable housing was addressed in all the development agreements, but it was addressed as a goal, not as a specific deliverable. So it was one of those things that there was this understanding that affordable housing would be developed if it became, I guess, prudent for the developer in those development agreements. So without having specific quantifiable deliverables, it makes it much harder to enforce that or to encourage that affordable housing.
So that's an illustration of the agreements weren't written as accurately or as locked up and firm as they could have been. And then again, you know, we just touched on all the other things. So then you get into the development side, and I don't know about Hardeeville, you know, now we're experiencing flooding issues from growth, and actually neighborhoods, houses, many, one development's flooded twice in 8 years. That is from the standards that were created at the time when they built the stormwater systems. But, you know, these are all challenges. I don't know, the lay of your land may be different, but again, I think traffic, and as the mayor always talks about, if you're not keeping your environment squared away, you're going to ruin the quality of life.
Well, and there's not a development agreement that y'all have on the books right now that will not, where the owners will not come and want to amend it numerous times. And that's your window. When they want to change something that you don't really have to say yes to, that's your only window to say, okay, we need a contribution for some affordable housing or road projects or whatever it is, because none of those agreements were bulletproof. I mean, they are general in development, and they got all they could from you, just like they did from us. I mean, they'll build every inch that's rightfully allowed. But that's an advantage for the opportunity for you guys to, you know, when they ask for more or changing this and changing that, get something for the town, get something for the people, affordable housing or whatever it may be, make them contribute. They'll still be there on the table.
We have to. We can no longer allow clear cutting of our lands. We've seen the results. You mentioned the flooding. These were development agreements that were written 20 years plus ago, and they were mostly written by the developers and presented to the cities and approved at that time. the door opens, we have to step in and we have to look forward for what our children, grandchildren, what are we going to leave them here? We can no longer allow the trees to be cut and to be replaced with pine trees and non-native. We have heritage oaks that we can no longer lose. It's why I moved here and why a lot of people have moved here. We have to make it a priority.
To add to your question there, Josh, a lot of great things have been said. Another way that we've handled, addressed some of those issues in the time that I've been on council, I know we have come up collectively with ideas on things that we put in a reforestation plan. So like there's really a lot of limited things you can do when it comes to telling a private property owner what they can and cannot do with their land if they're abiding by whatever state, statutes state. But in saying things like, you can't go back and cut down an oak and then plant a pine tree. You have to, replace it with a native tree, and these are the specific tree types, and it has to be an arborist that tells you that you were able to, remove a tree. You can't just say, oh, it was dead, without having staff be able to weigh in. When it came to even looking at some of the development things from affordable housing, standpoints, and I don't know where necessarily everyone agrees, but it was an opportunity even for you all to look at maybe having a developer, give fees or something in lieu of that you could instead, steward those funds. One of our great quality of life programs has been the neighborhood assistance program. And so we know that we can't build a brand new home for every one of our residents who can't afford to have access to it, but we can repair safe and dry structures by, helping to repair a roof or whatever it is. And it's afforded a lot of residents to be able to maintain their way of life and stay in the area and still work. So it's one of the things where, everyone sometimes uses it as a political point on what they're going to stop the growth or development. And the reality is there's only but so much we can do because of those state codes. But it's having the foresight to look ahead and say that we're not afraid of growth, but the growth has to be smart and it has to balance to not where you are now, but that plan for being ahead. Because only 17 years ago, we were not annexed with a Palmetto Bluff or Buckwalter and had almost 20,000 acres that we annexed in and got growth, but it was needed. We didn't have money if you don't do it. So it's kind of like government's hand is tied at times, but there's smart ways to do things by looking ahead to plan for those unintended consequences.
Thank you. Yes, Stephen, you want to?
I'm glad to, and then we'll continue.
3 minutes.
Did you want to
Mine's mostly pictures.
Josh took his 3.
Josh had to do that.
So as you're going to hear from us, slightly different than Hardeeville, just a little bit. I don't think we have, but only a couple million square foot of commercial. I'm just kidding. But as Josh kind of alluded to, and we've talked about, the difference in the region down here is that Hilton Head is developed with its own unique character because of the beach, the tourists, the bridge. We've developed because of our environment, our river, our location, and y'all with the interstate and everything have different things that have led to the different type of development that's taken place in the community, and that's being seen. And that's also impacted how we've planned and developed around our community. What you're going to hear from us is that we're a little further down that curve of growth than we're behind behind Hilton Head, but ahead of y'all, like the three kids there. So I'm gonna go a little bit over the overview, Bluffton today, growth data, some of our projects that are going on in the community that are going to be beneficial to the entire region. Because again, even though we are separate entities, we all touch each other, we all depend on each other, we all have our different characteristics that depend and support each other. And then talk about some of the land acquisition we're doing, and this goes into kind of some of the things that we're doing with the development agreements to try to, now that we've reached a certain point, stop development from occurring. As well as just talking about our strategic planning and some of our CIP projects. So we're the 4th largest municipality in landmass. We used to be 4th. We got passed by somebody down on the interstate. Again, since 2000, we've had more than a 14,000% growth in our, 1,400% growth. I added an extra 0. Our median age, the last time we did our survey was around 37 and a half. I think it's a little over 40 this time. It continues to grow up as people move and live here. Again, if you survey, I'm sure probably Hardeeville, Hilton Head, we're probably younger than most of those areas. I think we only have 2 neighborhoods with 2 developments within the town that are age restricted. I think Four Seasons and
The Haven.
And the Haven. Everything else is no restrictions for age. You can see our average household income, average rent, median home value, and as you said, that's median. They're selling this. That was it last year, so this year it's probably averaging 100,000 more than that or so. There we are in '87, 1 square mile. Here we are today, a little over 54 square miles, probably pushing 55 since we annexed a little bit over the last few years. You've been with us, you can see all those nice donuts, all the white spots that are unincorporated Beaufort County, and I'll talk about those in a minute about how they impact our area. So we have our growth framework, and what you're seeing today matches our growth framework that has been in place for a couple decades. So that bright red spot you see in the middle is the intersection of Bluffton Parkway and Buckwalter. And if you go, in a minute, I'm going to talk about everything that's going on right there. That is our biggest hotspot for development right now. But as you can see with the yellow circles on the perimeter, there's you've got the traffic circle out there on New Riverside. You've got the intersection of 278, 170, up on 278, and different areas where we've seen commercial growth take place. And y'all see this every time you drive as you shift from east to west. As the growth has gone with the town with residential from east to west, you can go back and see the commercial following behind it. So now Buckwalter's filling in the intersection of 278 or 170 and New Riverside, and we'll continue to shift more east and north towards as the commercial develops out. The green is all of our development agreements. We're very similar to y'all. We're 92% in development agreements. I don't know, y'all are probably somewhere around that same. And then we have a few areas that are typical zoning, which is our Old Town area and most of our Buck Island, Simmonsville neighborhoods. So this is what I was talking about earlier. So this is kind of a regional map. Everything that's green are approved developments within the town for neighborhoods. Everything that's beige is other residential developments that have been built that are not in the town, but we get blamed for. You know, so we get told y'all are the reason that there's development at Rose Hill, or they call and want to complain to the town. But the chart on the right, you can see this on our map gallery. What it gets down to is when you get to the very end, you'll see that the town's approved just about 30,000 residential units. The unincorporated county has about 30,000 residential units. So as much as we've allowed growth to occur within the town of Bluffton, there's just as much right around us that we have no control over whatsoever, that Beaufort County has approved through all the different neighborhoods, including Sun City, Belfair, Rose Hill, Crescent, and even right in the middle of the town with Grandy Oaks and some other places like that that are completely surrounded by the town. So this is where we are kind of from year to year. You can see just last year we've grown about 2% of our residential development was built out. Our commercial actually went down, and that's being because we expired about 29 acres, but we annexed in 65 more. So we annexed in right off of Buckwalter and Bluffton Parkway. So our because of that, we have more commercial development that we brought in, but we haven't built it, so that actually went down this year. And you can see most of our development has taken place over here on the west side of town, southwest. This is in the presentation you got. This is a chart we put together. We send in every council packet, but it just kind of goes through what's remaining for all of our residential units. And then we put it out on, we have a map that shows everything that goes on in town. I always throw it in there just for, as we're doing anything out in the public, in case anybody ever wonders. You drive by and you see a backhoe moving dirt, you can come on here, click the blue dot. You can see what's being built. You can see a copy of the plans when they've been inspected and so forth and so on. So it's a great tool. If it's something you don't have, it's something I would recommend because it helps a lot with the community, with residents and council when they get calls to direct people to know what's going on. So a bunch of upcoming projects. We have 2 hospitals that are about to be built. One's broken ground and is actually getting ready. It's going vertical. soon. The other one is in the process of permitting. They're both at the intersection of Buckwalter and Bluffton Parkway. One is the Bluffton Community Medical Campus, which is Beaufort Memorial Hospital, which is being built on the north side of Bluffton Parkway. And it'll be about 91,000 square feet medical office with emergency department, and it'll have, I think, 30, give or take, beds in there. Directly across from it south, right here, is where Navant's about to build a 4-story new hospital right there. They're going through the permit process, and they're trying to break ground here, I think, in end of this month or the first part of May. And they'll be building another hospital there, and they're going to have, when completely built out, I think it's 90 to 100, 94, yeah, between 90 and 100 beds there. So something that's desperately been needed, something that we've been trying to prioritize and push for. The state certificate of need law expiring is helping that actually move forward. But because of that, we'll have 2 hospitals in our area that our citizens will be able to use. Right around there, just north, we're getting an actually standalone emergency room similar to Tide Watch, which I'm not sure if is in y'all's town limits or not. A standalone emergency room by Novant right across from Washington Square. And we're also having a medical office built directly this way, which will be a partnership with the MUSC, because so many of our citizens, if they can't see somebody here, they have to drive to Charleston to be able to see them and go to MUSC. So it'll actually be a place where MUSC doctors can actually see patients here on a regular basis, so residents don't have to commute back and forth to Charleston quite as much. So all of those are under construction, and then right behind it, there's a water tower going up to help make sure they've got plenty of water to operate as they move forward. We're also doing some economic development with our Don Ryan Center, which is a partner with Hardeeville. Right next to our police department, we're partnering with Tim Dolnick, to build 36,000 square feet of light industrial warehouse. That's one of the things that we're hearing is missing the most within our town. As we know, land is tight and it's expensive, but the mixed warehouse where it could be, say, like a plumber, where you may have an office in front, HVAC, something like that, and then you have a warehouse mixed use in the back and a place to store your vehicles and equipment overnight so that you can service our residents. Because one of the things that we hear from our residents as we've grown so much, and I'm sure y'all are probably getting there as well, is we have a tough time finding people to provide services. Like you said, bringing in the jobs for the people who already live here. The other thing we're doing with it is the town is actually going to get this building back right here, and Don Ryan Center is going to manage that, and that's going to be a incubator, where people can use as a co-work space, an incubator space, grow their business, landing pad. We'll have a child care facility in the bottom of it that's going to be ran by one of our DRCI clients, and we'll have some low-income child care spots that they are guaranteed to hold for residents as part of that partnership. And then the goal is, we'll have a couple of mixed-use spaces in there as well. The goal is, as people are going through our DRCI program and they need a space to land, they've got a landing space. If they're growing, they can grow in there, but the goal is not to keep them here forever. The goal is to get them in, get them set, and let them go find another space to move into so that we can bring somebody else in to start another business or continue to grow a business. These are a couple other developments. You mentioned New Riverside Village. It's going on right there at the intersection of the traffic circle. There's commercial all in around the exterior, and then townhomes and apartments in the back. This is Washington Square up on Buckwalter. So you can see there's a mixture of townhomes here, and then we have commercial along the front, office and institutional back right here. They just completed the first building. They're getting ready to build the mirror to it back here. So again, so these are just some of the major developments that are going on. Again, you heard where you saw those red and yellow spots, that's where all these are going. Everything in Buckwalter is where the medical, where Washington Square, that's that hot spot right in the middle. The yellow is where you see New Riverside Village, May River Crossing, that's over there at the intersection. And the reason I point those out is because, as you mentioned earlier, connected by the roadways, when those hospitals get built, Bluffton isn't going to be the only resident or people that are going to be using those hospitals. We know they're going to be a regional resource for everybody. And actually, both of them have said that's what they anticipate, is that to be their southern Beaufort County, their hub for southern Beaufort County to hub out to Hardeeville and Hilton Head from there. So what guides all of what goes on in the town? It's always our strategic plan. We do it every 2 years. This is our current cover, but you can see we've had the same. I think we added a 7th in about 6 or 7 years ago, but since then we've had the same 7 topics that have been up there that drive every decision that council makes. So when it comes to anything we're doing, it's going to impact one of those 7 areas. It also directs where our funding goes to make sure that if we're putting money into a CIP project, that it's going to address one of those items. One of those that we're doing right now is land acquisition. We've been setting money aside for years, so we're trying to actually buy land right now. And the reason we're trying to buy it is because one of the things that we didn't do as part of our development agreements is we didn't ask them to reserve any land for civic use. So schools, fire stations, hospital, any of that kind of stuff that needs to come back behind, parks and stuff like that. So one of the things that we're running into is the schools are running out of space. They need to build more schools. They have to buy land to be able to do so because New Riverside didn't give them 100 acres to build on. They had to buy the land to build on. We didn't get land from Cypress Ridge, which is 1,900 homes. They've got to buy land to then service them. So that's one of the things that wasn't included in when we talked about lessons learned from development agreements. That was one we didn't include. I know y'all have done some of that in some of your development agreements. So right now we're working with the school district to buy what's called Willow Run Tract, which is on 278. This is St. Gregory the Great, sits right here. There's a fire station right there, and then Eagles Point is right here. So we're working to buy that, and it'll take off about 350 residential units. It'll take off about 1 million square foot of commercial, of development rights. And the town already has a piece of property down there in the red. We're going to end up swapping from here back up along 278. We bought this property and been holding it for affordable housing. So we'll swap that, and then we can put our affordable housing up here, and then the school can build their school further off the road, which is where they want to be. So we're working on that. We'll have a work session with council on it at our May meeting, and the goal is to finalize it, hopefully around do first and second reading of everything in June and July and close in July. So this gives you an idea of what like I said, where we're looking to swap land. And then there's everything we're looking to take off. I forgot the 2 150 unit hotels as well that we'll get access to. And the goal is, as you heard mentioned, what our council hears in the community is we have too much growth, there's too much traffic, we need better schools, or our kids need space in schools, so forth. So what's driving this is trying to reduce some of the development that can take place so we can preserve more green space and drop that. Outside of that, right below Willow Run, we've got Green Penny application in for these 2 properties here with Beaufort County to buy these 2 properties and hold them in preservation for the future. They currently don't have any development rights on them, but they're in Buckwalter development agreement, which means that if somebody bought, say, this piece of property right here, and they had development rights, they could just move it over to that property and develop it. So we're trying to preserve them with the
Or
Green
if a
Penny.
future council wants to.
Decided to give them development rights in the future. 20 years down the road when growth is slow, somebody may say, hey, this is a great spot, and that council may agree. So this would keep it preserved through the Green Penny. And we could do nature trails or some stuff like that, but that's about it. So other partnerships that we're working on is septic to sewer. So that's a big push that we're having as we talked about environment, is protecting our river, our natural resources, is trying to get some of these septic tanks that are failing around the area that are polluting into the river and remove them. We go back to our strategic planning. Our environment is one of our big things. Protecting the May River and surrounding water sources is one of the big ones. So we've partnered with BJWSA in the county to do Stony Creek project, which is going to remove Stony Creek campground plus about an additional 100 properties off of failing septic systems onto sewer, where the head of the May River sits right here to keep it and try to reduce the amount of fecal coliform that goes into the river right there.
Stephen, if I may, the one you just mentioned, the trifecta of the agreement between the three parties,
BJWSA in the county?
that is in unincorporated Beaufort County. That is not in the city.
in the town.
It's not in the town.
There's a very, like, right here, that area there, the rest of this is all unincorporated. There's also, we've been talking with them about All Joy as well, as a partnership between the county and us, because again, you have failing septic systems that drain directly into the May River, and try to address those. Other partnerships is LATS. Y'all are members of LATS. I think, Mayor, I think you're the chair of it. So as long as I'll let you be chair. And
No, I got out of that.
projects that are being studied, as we talked about with transportation, that's one of our strategic plan items. It's also a big regional transportation issue. You hit on several of the main areas, the Argent, the 46, 315. Right now, we're doing a Bluffton Parkway corridor that goes all the way from 170 to the flyover on the bridge, trying to look at improvements that may be needed on intersections or queuing of vehicles, even the roundabout at Bluffton Road and so forth. The county has some projects like Burnt Church Road improvements that are part of previous bond referendums that we're still waiting on them to complete. So we're going through those. And then there's some long-term projects with like 46 widening to the county line, potential parkway, 5B realignment, any of those kind of things that may come out of the future study or any of that kind of stuff. But again, regional transportation is a major issue when it comes to y'all's growth and what we've already had. So it's a matter of making sure that they're getting studied and that's regionals look into it. So we're also working on capital projects for our citizens, and that I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised, like with the new Riverside Park that we've opened, if we don't have some coming over from your neck of the woods to bring kids, grandkids over to visit it. But these are, again, a list of our capital projects that we're working on, some that we've completed. We have a new welcome center that we opened up earlier this year with Squire Pope. We have our splash pad that we opened up last November, just reopened it back up for the season right before 1st of April. We have our new Riverside Barn Park. And again, trying to keep up with where the growth's going. This is a huge park over where we've had our fastest growing area. We're still continuing to work on the barn. You can see the walking trails in there. There'll be a phase 2 of trails that go back through the woods. And then we'll finish up the barn as an event venue, and it's supposed to be done at the end of this year. We're getting ready. It's out for bid right now to surface the new Riverside Trail from the river up to 46, and then phase 2 will be from 46 up to the back of Sun City, right there on this power line easement that runs right there. So we'll bring that to council, should be in May, to award that, and then we'll start working on that. So again, trying to continue improvements, amenities for our citizens as we're trying to get them into the area where our citizens have built and moved into. The other thing we're doing is similar to what you're doing and your downtown is streetscape. We're trying to, we're continuing streetscapes in Old Town. We did part of Bridge Street, and we're getting ready to start phase 2 of Bridge Street this year. Pritchard Street and a couple other Boundary, Calhoun, the main streets. So we'll have kind of our main thoroughfares in Bridge Street with streetscapes going forward. So these are a couple big projects we have coming up that's going to have a big impact on our Old Town over the next 3 years. And we map them out, try to keep up with them in case curious about anything that's going on. And that's us. I mean, we don't have the millions of square foot of commercial. You've heard our economic development pitch that I did at the Bluffton Regional Business Council. You'll hear the mayor say it. We're more of a 10 dimes is better than 3/4. We work on the small scale. Economic development that we're doing may be creating 15 jobs or 20 jobs, but if we can get 10 of those, then we're hitting similar to some of the bigger ones. Plus, economic development it's unique in every different area because we don't have the land. If somebody came to us right now and said they needed 100 acres to build a manufacturing facility, you can't find 100 acres in Bluffton that either to buy or even that has the right to be able to do that. So it's a
One thing I wanted to mention, Stephen, that you hit on it, but I don't know if you guys understand. When we were talking about what's in these development agreements when they're signed 20 years before, 15 years or whatever, in our partnership with the school district, we are spending $2.5 million to get back what we gave away, if that makes sense. So that property in that development agreement, that owner was allowed 324, what was the number,
about 340 residential units.
Residential units, 250-room hotels, another million or so square foot of commercial development. So that's what the town at that time said, oh yeah, this will be wonderful. Now that we know better, we're buying what we gave away, basically, spending $2.5 million to prevent that much development from going there. And not only that parcel, other parcels as well. So, you know, it's tricky. We're learning.
I didn't put this
We
in here.
can't fix it all, but we can fix some of it.
I didn't put it in here, but one of the things, when you asked a question about lessons learned and I know we talked about affordable housing a little bit and some of the language and all that, but one of the things that we're dealing with right now is also connectivity. So there's a couple different places, or about 3 that we're working with right now, where in the development agreements, it referred to potential future connections or just future connection, and there was no language or no requirement to force that connection to be built. So right now, we're actually working as some things are getting developed to try to push those connections to be made between developments. So because the development agreement lacked the language to be able to force that. So that's one thing I would mention again. Words, especially legalese, have important meanings, and shall versus may or should make a big difference when it comes to that. And so I know y'all have had some funds given to y'all to help with road improvements. That's one that I would consider is those connectivity, because we're trying to go back now, and again, nothing is as cheap as it could have been 20 years ago or 10 years ago. So trying to make those connections add up. And I'll be more than glad to answer any questions. I know I kind of went off several topics.
Why don't we do it and start the questioning? Steve, start, and we'll just go around and finish with me.
Okay, thank you, mayors, both of you. I've been here in the Low Country now for 11 years. The first 5 years I was in Beaufort County. I was in Beaufort, came to Hardeeville in 2019, and as you saw, we had about 6,000 people. We'll finish this year at 20,000. It's massive growth. I live in Margaritaville. It's a development agreement that's 20-plus years old. My involvement with the council was because of some of the things that I saw that I disagree with, the development agreements. Councilman White has said something, and I really find myself adhering to that. Do not be in a hurry to make a mistake. Mistakes made 20 years ago that we are dealing with today. 20 years from now, I want the people in Bluffton and Hardeeville to say, boy, I'm sure glad the councils did that, instead of what we may be saying today is, I wish they wouldn't have done that. We have that opportunity. As these development agreements come to be open, as Mayor Toomer has said, they want something. Well, we want something. We need something. We have to plan for the schools. These jobs that are going to be opening up here, they're not for me and my 55-plus community. They're going to be for the younger folks that are going to be moving here to take those jobs, and they're going to have children. So the schools have to be ramped up to do that. We have to be prepared to do that. Our infrastructure, we're just not quite there. We have plans, but we are not there. I don't know if we could keep up with the infrastructure as our growth has been. And that's a thing that a lot of our new folks coming in here, I say patience. Just take patience. They don't understand. These roads aren't all ours. They're not Bluffton's. They're not Beaufort County's. They're not Jasper County's or Hardeeville's. They belong to the state of South Carolina. We're dealing with something that most people where they've come from have never had that before. So it's the patience that we all have to show. But we're getting there. Bluffton, I think you're doing a great job. I really see things happening there. Hardeeville, we're different, but we're getting there. We hope to be where you're at in 10, 15 years. Our growth is coming. And, you've done some right things and we're learning, and that's where our growth is going to be. We're going to manage that growth and we're going to do it right. So 20 years from now, people are going to say, boy, I'm sure glad they did it. And that's all.
And I have one rebuttal for you, sir. Remember that we did some things wrong. So remember to look at those wrong things we did as well.
Don't focus on the wrong things. Focus on the right things, but
Focus on
remember the wrong things.
You're always supposed to focus on the right things because you always want to be positive, but you got to learn from your mistakes. Okay.
I heard another good quote to go with yours, Councilman Hamilton. Don't be in a hurry to make a mistake, and yours is always know better, do better. So we got two good ones there.
Any more questions?
John?
I'm a native from here too, and Mayor Tuma was kind of alluding to the same thing. 20 years ago, or whatever, a lot of these agreements that we made, in a way, we didn't have a choice. We wanted we needed development and we needed industry, and Jasper County and Hardeeville was even worse than Bluffton, and so a lot of these agreements we made, even though some of the things that we did, we probably knew at the time weren't the best, that's all we could do to get them in. And now, like you say, the only way we're going to rectify that is when they come in and want an amendment or whatever and change it. But Steve, you had also mentioned something about your donut holes, and I know that can be it's got to be an issue for y'all sometime. How do y'all work with Beaufort County with that? Are they cooperative or so? I guess you got to be careful how you answer that, but I know you kind of glossed over the donut hole,
So I'll say the biggest issue that's always an immediate need for anything like that is if somebody calls 911, and we have a good relationship between us and the sheriff's office to deal with the issue, and then we'll sort out everything else as we need to, but address the issue immediately. It doesn't hurt us really with fire service because the county has the Bluffton Township Fire Department. And again, that's the service they provided before we started growing the way we did. So the fire department's separate from us. So when it comes to emergency services, those are handled pretty well. Where it comes in a lot is whenever we're actually having a development or a conversation with council, is hearing something with a development amendment or initial master plan, and the people who are in those donut holes get upset that their voice doesn't carry or necessarily as much weight as residents do, or they think that they're part of the town when they necessarily
Really not.
aren't. That doesn't mean their voice doesn't carry weight. It's just that leads to some struggle when they come in and trying to address issues that are in their backyard but are not
In your
that are
control.
unincorporated versus
Right.
incorporated.
And many of them don't know that they're not in the town of Bluffton.
One of our most visited maps we have on our website is, do I live in the town of Bluffton? Because a lot of people have a Bluffton address and don't realize that they're in one of those donut holes.
See, we have that same issue.
We have the same issue.
I wanted to say one other thing to you, John, so there's no confusion. When I first was elected, I hated the donut holes. Okay, I just think it would be great if the laws would allow us to fulfill our destiny and close them up, because I've always looked at it from the perspective, for example, that Bluffton built a great community, cute town, lovely, people keep moving here, but the people in the donut holes use our facilities, but our taxpayers built everything, okay? So they don't have to pay the taxes for that. But at the same side of the coin, years later down the road, and you've heard us all talk about our problems that we've encountered at the tail end of the growth cycle. In the last few years, because most of the property in unincorporated Beaufort County is, their density is lower, okay? And so we've had multiple organizations want to annex into the town, and we've not allowed them to. They want more and more than we're willing to give. We've turned down quite a few annexations that most people are not even aware of. The other annexations that we did take, and he referenced one a while ago, basically, we beat them down to there was no upzoning. They had a choice. They could have half a project in Bluffton and half in the same piece of land, half the project in Bluffton and half the project in Beaufort County. They didn't want to deal with two governmental entities, but we beat them down. And then the same thing with the St. Gregory the Great piece of property out on 278. Staff worked with them. We went to the counties, what the county offered them is what by right. And we went down and looked at all of that, and we pare those things down when it's in our benefit. We pare it down to make them make a choice. Do you really want to be in the town or not? So we have turned down a lot in time, so.
No upzoning.
Bob?
I agree with everything that's been said. The other thing I think about for all this growth and things that we're talking about, workforce talent to get a lot of this done, and then assimilating all these services together to make sure that they work and deliver what they're saying. You talked about the fire and some of these other things. It's a lot of logistics and a lot of magic that needs to be there to make a lot of that happen, besides getting the people. So that's one of the things I think about as I'm listening.
Riding that magic carpet on the State of the Region.
Yeah. That's why I can get out of town fast. Val?
I've been listening to everybody talk about development agreements, and when I read a development agreement, that's the fastest way to get my blood pressure up, because I see it written specifically to benefit the developer. It does not benefit anybody else but themselves. And when I first came in, Green behind the ears and every place else, I was told you cannot turn down a development because of the fear of being sued by these developers. So we kind of had to bite the bullet, get what we could, and let the chips fall where they may, which usually benefited the developer. So yesterday, I came across a very interesting article that talks about concurrency. And I don't know how many of you have seen that article in the Post and Courier where South Carolina state law, they're going to try and change it where it will give power to the local governments to say where these developments go, and then also to demand that the infrastructure goes in along with those developments. I think that's a great opportunity for all of us, you guys, as well as us, because y'all are almost built out, and now they're encroaching in Hardeeville. And I think it's a great opportunity for both our regions, and actually the entire region, to come together to support our local legislators in getting this law passed, because I think it'll benefit everybody. I mean, you hear people screaming about the traffic every day. I mean, you have to just go on 278 and then try to head towards the island, and you see what gridlock. And that's only going to get worse because we have more and more homes coming in, and those people are still working, and you know, that's an additional car or two on the roads that were last expanded when when was 278 widened?
In the 80s.
Okay, so now we're 2025, and there's that many more cars on the roads. So, and then we keep adding more and more and more developments. So we've come to the point where we are bursting at the seams, and unless we get on Harry's magic carpet pretty soon, we're not going to be able to go anywhere. And it bothers me, because if we have a major hurricane and we have to evacuate everybody, I would take my chances and stay in my house because I don't want to die on the road when my car gets flipped over somewhere because we're stuck there and we're caught in the storm, and that bothers me. So I think if you have not read about the concurrency issue, it was in the Post and Courier. Senator Davis has posted an article about it on his website. I think it's great if we can get together and formulate something so that we can, as a region, push this to make it happen, because it affected you guys and it's going to affect us. And I think in the long run, it will benefit everybody. If we can hold these developers' feet to the fire and have them put the infrastructure in, because I think it's not fair as a city that we have to expand, we have to come up with the funds to build more roads, to expand our police departments, to expand the fire departments, and provide all the services that they create. My mom told me when I was growing up, you make a mess, you clean it up. If they make the mess, they should be responsible to clean it up. Thank you.
I just have a couple of quick questions. The commercial, you have a heck of a lot more commercial in Bluffton, and of course, that's developed over years. How did you recruit it? Was there a incentive? Was there a marketing program? Or did it just happen because you have a lot of houses? How did it happen?
That's a part of our zoning. So zoning dictates how much commercial space can be in that development as well as housing. So you create that with your zoning pretty much. And we also know that commercial helps pay some of the expense of running those communities and keeping the town. I guess you have to be sustainable. And so we look for the long term of being how we're going to sustain after development is long gone.
So we have the zoning within each planned development district. There's a certain amount of commercial in there. What we don't have is the commercial interest coming to fill that zoning.
We've got the same problem. And we've had multiple developers wanting to amend that development agreement to not build the commercial and build more residential. Since COVID and since we've had this major influx of everybody wanting to be here, the developers would rather build residential now than commercial, where 15, 20 years ago, if you owned commercial property, that was high dollar property. You know, I mean, commercial property was worth more money than just land to build residential lots. So that's what we have. No more agreements, and some of those agreements had in there where the developer had the right to change, what do you call it? Change it, or
They could convert to
Convert it,
residential.
that's the word I was
but
looking
They had a
for.
cap, they're capped out.
into residential, but we have no more development agreements with that wording, and we are not interested in allowing anyone to do that. So now we're finally getting that commercial property. This year, in the last year, we've had more commercial development than
Coming. It's rooftop numbers.
a long, long time.
Yeah, and we keep hearing the same thing, but Margarita,
Being there first, no developer wants to build commercial until the people are there to sustain it and make it work.
Mayor Williams.
I think to the question though that he was asking is, we recently have had a program where we did create incentives to businesses west of our area to provide services that we didn't have, that were more so congested just in the central portion. So things like offering certain tax credits that we could do, waiving certain fees that we, could do, of course, in compliance with state limitations, and then also working overtime for them to be able to maintain a certain incentive if it was like demand services we need, so health, medical facilities, childcare facilities. And then we also have a partnership with the Beaufort County Economic Development Committee, and so they have taken some of our undeveloped lands, particularly in Buckwalter and in the digital corridor. Technology is another one of our programs that we incentivize commercial developers for. But John O'Toole with that particular program has shopped that space out to potential developers on a commercial level that would fit into one of those categories that we, as a council, said it was a priority.
I will say, tongue in cheek, we built such a beautiful town.
That's probably the right answer.
Well, you know, I'm going to go back. We have no industry, as we've all established, and we don't have a lot of land, but the Old Town Master Plan that was developed in 2005, and you and I have talked in depth about that, and I'm sure you probably glanced at it. But I think Bluffton had a cool factor going on, and young families started moving here. You know, our average median, I used to tell Mayor Salk all the time, pay attention to the average median age. If it's low, you're attracting young people. And I like to say that older people will go to where the young people are, but young people are not going to go to where the older people are. So we've got a lot of that going on. So, and I think it just naturally brought in the commercialization along with the rooftops.
Right, and one thing that I just want to add to this, I know we're about running out of time. The commercial businesses, not only do we need them for the service of our residents, especially medical and just, you know, Starbucks, all these, you know, small things that everybody needs, coffee shops and grocery stores and stuff, but they will help us not have to go up on our taxes to our younger families. With that commercial, that's where it's so vital for the future of the town to pay all the town's staff and all the town's expenses, police department included. That commercial aspect of it is huge. And we have to have that commercial, you know, to be able to stay, not that you can afford, most people can't afford to live there already, but to prevent us from having to raise our taxes to the point where none of our young people can stay in Bluffton. You know, that's my dream, is to, kids born here, I want them to stay here and call this home and have a sense of like I have, you know, just a different desire than turning it into another city.
Bluffton has the development, the commercial development. I'm jealous. I have to admit that I am jealous of all of that. And Hardeeville, the day will come when that comes here. It's funny because I'm learning that Hardeeville, Ms. Guzman and I are new to the council. But we're learning quickly. Hardeeville, to me, is almost a tale of two cities within one. I live in the newest part. It's all new to us. But there's old Hardeeville, downtown Hardeeville. This is what John has tried to instill in us, that it's all one city. We are all there at large. My development, I have to urge people to come out of my development and turn left and go down to where Hardeeville is. That's Hardeeville. We're new, but there is Hardeeville there, and the commercial development will come. Exit 3 is going to ignite that, exit 8, exit 5. And I tell people it won't happen overnight, but it will. It's just going to take some patience, some time, and some commitment by the citizens and the developers to make it happen. Mayor Williams has been there for 7 years, and he has seen where we have started, where we're at, and where we're going to be. I'm very proud of it. I hope, you know, in 20 years that I see where Hardeeville is where Bluffton is today, and Bluffton is continuing to grow.
I hope I'm still around in 20 years.
I know I won't be.
So,
Anyway, you know, so we can, you know, I don't want to keep everybody out, but always like to, I think this is a great first step, and I always like to talk about what our next steps are. I would hope, as I said in the opening statements, that this is just the start of something that we could do on a regular basis. Whether that regular basis be twice a year, once a quarter, I think each of our councils should get together and offer a suggestion after we've talked about it, what we've got to. I think there's also two immediate issues that I think Bluffton and Hardeeville have the opportunity or the chance to be the spearhead if we work together. One is what Val just talked about, concurrency. And I have a copy of that bill that's sponsored by Senator Davis, and it's coming out of his committee. Something to look at. One of the essential part of that bill is to give us, the municipality, the chance, even within a development district, to require certain infrastructure go in before the development goes in. Doesn't mean we have to use it, but it gives us that tool in the toolbox. It brings a little bit of that into our home rule. So that's something, and I'll send that to you, I'll send it to Stephen, that bill. I think that's something that perhaps we might want to take up as a two-town committee. Also, last Thursday, there's another thing that I think is very important. Hardeeville, we passed at our council meeting the resolution recommended by the Child Care Subcommittee of Soloco. Our council will also consider, perhaps, will take up the subject of being a test case. This is, and we asked that committee, they gave us a presentation to structure what a test would look like. That not only from Soloco, but as two towns that have our workforce so tightly together that this may be some way that perhaps the two of us want to be the test baby on how we can do this. We have a year because the tri-share model does not, requires the state to fund a third of that tri-share. We missed this budget year. So we have a year to test it, to see if it, taste it, think it around, and see if this is something that could be a good model. So I would welcome the town of Bluffton to, did I go up my 3 minutes?
Yeah. Getting close.
So to think about that, and certainly our council has showed its commitment to that resolution that is part of Soloco. And if we could get the whole region to sign on to that resolution, we have a chance. It doesn't solve the problem. It's just, it takes one bite out of a very big elephant. It gives us all one option. So there's
I need to follow up with you on that because we've had a little bit of conversations, but I'm not exactly sure of everything.
At Soloco tomorrow, I'm going to announce that our council has passed it. I'm going to ask that all the jurisdictions at least let me know. Are you interested? You're not going to go forward. At least we know who's in and who's out within the, because I don't want the year to go by and then nothing gets done. So there's, I think those are two areas that we can jointly, be a leader in our region. So I'll end with Stephen. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Before we wrapped up, I just wanted to say one thing as we were talking about development agreements. And one of the main reasons I asked Richardson to be here tonight, because my understanding from talking to Josh was there might be a topic of what we adopted recently with our wetlands ordinance. Yes. And I know we've, some of the stuff that came up earlier in talking about development agreements and some of the issues you're dealing with, we've worked within the development agreements where it references the health, welfare, health, welfare, safety, that is outlines in the development agreements to push as much as we can when it comes to the local level. when it comes to tree mitigation, when it comes to tree clearing, with our stormwater. I know y'all don't have stormwater yet, so that's a limiting factor that you have, but it's also a tool that we have where we can tie in the wetlands, we can tie in tree clearing, and we can tie in those kind of things within the development agreements to put some limitations in place. So if it's something, and I don't want to hash it out tonight, just if it's something that is, as y'all explore that further, we'll be more than glad to share anything that we have and work any way we can to help support you.
And I think those are the kinds of things we want to get out of this. When we found out about your ordinance change, it was received widely as a positive step in the region, and our council asked Josh to look into our ordinance and see if we can adopt something similar we can learn from each other.
We're still learning too.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's what the beauty of tonight is. It's the first step in possibly, learning from each other and avoiding the mistakes that both of us have made. We wish I had that one back, but, we talk, we're right next to each other. Right. I think this could be the start of a beautiful thing.
Mr. Stees, you were talking about the health, safety, and welfare thing. Were you referring to the South Carolina Enabling Act of 1994? Because I have used that a couple times to not vote for a development, so.
So yes and no, because it actually, our development agreements actually have a clause in there that
Oh,
allow.
you do?
So, may I? Both the Local Government Development Agreement Act, it does have that language in there that you can do amendments if it's for life, safety, health, welfare of the public. But our agreements have that sort of language in there and also have some exceptions that the zoning regulations are locked in place, except for largely the stormwater regulations, which the development agreements anticipate will grow and change as development constraints necessitate. So both of those have been used kind of in coordination with one another to allow some more restrictive regulations to go in place, like the grading, tree preservation, stormwater, and a few other things.
Well, thank you everyone for, I think, a very productive first step. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank